Fired for telling the truth, the night the town switched off my light. They fired me at 5:43 p.m., just as the church bells began their nightly hymn. By 9:12, my house was the only black square on our street, porch light dead, refrigerator silent, the hum of life cut like a throat. The town didn't need a court to punish me, it had a switch. If you want more stories that punch back at injustice, subscribe now. Your click helps voices like mine be heard. In our town, the water tower is a clock, the diner is a courthouse, and the utility office where I worked was a church. Quiet, fluorescent, and obeyed. I was the senior billing auditor, which sounds glamorous, until you realize it means I hunt for pennies that run away in the dark. I am good at it. Numbers are shy animals. If you wait long enough, they step into the light. On Monday the 17th, the books looked fidgety. 3 new community initiatives had appeared in the ledger over the past quarter. A sidewalk fund that never poured concrete, a scholarship program with no recipients, and a mysterious line loss variance large enough to drown a city block. I ran the reports twice, then a third time. The totals didn't argue. They just refused to sit still. "Hey, Claire," I said, leaning into my supervisor's doorway. Claire keeps a framed motto that reads, "We're a family here." Beneath it, a secret second line in my head, "Families have closets." "What now, Eli?" She sighed without looking up. "There's a variance on feeder line B that makes no physical sense. Either the grid learned to eat electricity or someone taught it to vanish." She clicked her pen exactly twice. "Submit a memo." I did. 3, actually. She lifted her eyes, blue like a winter sky when a storm is waiting behind it. "Eli, you combed through our books last year and found 3 missing water meters. I gave you a bonus. Don't become the boy who cried audit." "I'm not crying," I said gently. "I'm counting." That evening, I drove the service loop myself. Houses hummed with dinner, televisions, small talk. Feeder line B crossed through the old mill district, empty warehouses, a nonprofit with a shiny sign and no lights inside, and the Holloway Center, a community hub that somehow drew more power on Sundays than the rest of the week combined. I stood by the chain-link fence and watched the building breathe. A low, steady exhale only big machines make. Back home, I drew a map at the kitchen table, tracing where the electrons should have gone and where they apparently did. My daughter June brought me crayons because the highlighters are always too serious for her taste. "Make the bad parts red," she said. "What if the bad parts are pretending to be good?" I asked. She shrugged with the grace children have before they learn to explain themselves. "Then they're still red." On Tuesday, I asked for usage logs and was given a brochure. On Wednesday, I requested a line inspection and was given a smile. On Thursday, I emailed the district manager a simple question: who approves the variance? I received silence dressed as an out-of-office reply. At the diner that night, the mayor's niece accidentally spilled coffee on my shirt. "Whoops," she sang, too loud. "Guess some folks should mind their spreadsheets." People turned to look. Our town can smell embarrassment like rain. I pressed a napkin to my chest and counted 1, 2, 3, until the heat behind my eyes lowered the weapon. Friday morning, Claire called me into the conference room. HR sat there, like a guest at a funeral, who picked the wrong tie. "We're restructuring," HR said. "We're a family," Claire added. "And families let people go?" I asked, polite as starch. HR slid an envelope across the table. 2 weeks severance if you sign now. For what offense? Curiosity? For creating a hostile environment with baseless allegations, HR replied, blushing at the word hostile, as if it might bite. I didn't sign. I stood. The allegations aren't baseless. The base is a substation behind Holloway Center that draws more power than it reports. If I'm wrong, prove it. Claire's smile trembled. Eli, please don't make this harder. It was hard the moment we decided math was a rumor. By 5:43 p.m., my key card turned from green to red. I walked out carrying a banker's box and the kind of reputation you can't wash off. The receptionist, who used to draw hearts on my daughter's coloring sheets, watched me without blinking. At 7, I posted the variance spreadsheets to a public folder and wrote a thread titled, "Where did the electricity go?" It wasn't poetry. It was a lamp switched on in a room someone wanted dim. The thread gathered a handful of likes, a dozen yawns, and 2 messages that smelled like gasoline. At 9:12, the house sighed and went quiet. No warning, no flicker, just gone. Porch light black, hallway black, June's nightlight, a small pale coin swallowed by a greater mouth. "Daddy?" she called from her room. "Did the stars take our light?" I held her in the doorway and listened to the warm, ordinary glow spilling from our neighbors' windows. Their lives continued. Ours paused. "Not the stars," I said. "People." Across the street, the Holloway Center's sign burned bright enough to make a shadow of our yard. I could hear the building breathing again. The town had a switch. Someone had flipped it and chosen our house. The morning after our lights died, I called the utilities emergency line. A recorded voice told me, "All systems are functioning normally." For everyone else, maybe. For us, normal had been redefined. At the grocery store, people I'd known since childhood suddenly studied the soup cans with monk-like devotion when I passed. Mrs. Green, who once crocheted a blanket for June, murmured loud enough for the aisle to hear, "If you stir dirt, don't be shocked when it sticks." The cashier didn't bag my milk. He pushed it down the counter as though it carried infection. June noticed. Children always notice. "Why don't they like us anymore?" she whispered on the walk home, her little hand clutching mine with a force that hurt. "Because we asked a question," I said, "and people fear questions more than answers." That night, we ate dinner by candlelight. June loved the shadows on the wall, calling them our ghost friends. I loved them less. Each flame was a reminder that our punishment wasn't an accident. It was a message. Keep quiet or live in the dark. I posted again online, this time a video from my phone. It showed the Holloway Center glowing like a beacon, while our house sat in a black hole. My caption read, "If this is justice, explain it to my daughter." The clip gathered traction, hundreds of shares, then thousands. Strangers offered sympathy, but local accounts? Silent. Too silent. By Wednesday, I found my car windshield cracked, a rock left on the seat with a note scrawled in red marker. "Stop counting." I brought it to the police station. The officer at the desk read the note, then folded it into his pocket like a receipt. "Probably kids," he said. "Don't lose sleep." "Kids don't kill the power to one house," I snapped. His eyes narrowed. "Careful, Mr. Lewis. People are saying you're unstable." "Unstable," I barked. "Because I added numbers correctly?" He leaned back in his chair, the badge on his chest gleaming like a dare. "Because you won't let it go." That night, June cried herself to sleep. I sat in the dark kitchen, staring at my useless refrigerator, my silent outlets, the dead hum of a life stripped away. For the first time, the numbers blurred in my mind. Doubt whispered, maybe Claire was right. Maybe I should have signed the papers. Maybe silence is survival. Then my laptop pinged. A message. Anonymous. I saw what you posted. You're not wrong. They're running servers in Holloway, government contracts, off the books. You didn't stumble on a variance. You tripped over a vault. I read it 3 times, each word sharpening my resolve. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't unstable. I was standing in front of a locked door everyone else pretended didn't exist. And someone inside the building had just cracked it open. The anonymous message sat in my inbox like a lit match. I didn't know who sent it, but I knew what it meant. I wasn't alone. Someone on the inside had seen enough to risk reaching out. The next morning, I walked June to school. Normally, she skipped ahead, drawing shapes with her shoes in the dust. That day, she clung to my arm. At the corner, her teacher, usually warm, usually kind, placed a hand on my shoulder and said softly, "Maybe it's best if you keep your concerns off campus." Concerns. That's what they called it. As if truth were an illness and I was contagious. When I returned home, another envelope waited on my porch. No stamp, no address. Inside, photocopies of utility blueprints. A red circle marked the Holloway Center's substation. Scribbled in the margin were 4 words. Check the basement logs. My pulse drummed. I drove out there before I could talk myself down. The center looked harmless. Community banners, manicured grass, a children's swing set in back. But behind the building, the chain-link fence sagged, the padlock rusted like a token gesture. I pressed my ear to the metal door and heard it. A low, endless hum, not the purr of heaters or lights, but the heartbeat of machines swallowing electricity by the ton. I snapped photos. Just as I turned to leave, headlights washed over me. A truck rolled up, its windows tinted black. The engine idled, louder than it needed to be. I slid my phone into my pocket and walked calmly toward my car. The driver's window lowered. A voice, steady, practiced, called out, "Evening, Eli. Strange place for a stroll." I froze. The man inside wore no uniform, but his smile was government-issued, confident, cold, rehearsed. "Community property," I said, forcing my tone flat. He chuckled. "Community secrets, too. You'd be smart to forget what you think you found." "And if I don't?" He leaned closer, the glow of the dash painting his face in green. "Then you'll learn what it means when a whole town decides not to see you." The truck rolled away, gravel spraying like laughter. That night, June asked if we could move. She said the other kids whispered ghost house whenever they passed our street. I tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and promised her, lied to her, that it would all be over soon. But when I stepped outside, the Holloway sign blazed across the road brighter than ever. And in that glow I swore I could see my reflection, not as a father or a neighbor, but as a problem they were preparing to erase. And I knew then, silence was no longer survival. Silence was surrender. By Friday, the blueprints from the envelope covered my kitchen table. June had drawn flowers in the margins, a child's rebellion against the darkness swallowing our home. The circled basement logs gnawed at me. What were they hiding below the Holloway Center? I knew I couldn't break in alone. So I reached out to the only reporter in town who still answered my calls. Lena Ward. She'd been pushed off the front page years ago for writing too many stories that made sponsors nervous. Now she freelanced, covering bake sales and school plays, waiting for a story with teeth. "This is suicide," she said after I showed her the blueprints. "This is math," I countered, "and math doesn't lie." Her eyes flicked over the pages, sharp and restless. "If this is real, Eli, it's bigger than just a variance. This is federal. This is contracts, kickbacks, and money that never hits the books. Then help me prove it." Saturday night, Lena parked her dented sedan 2 blocks from the center. We dressed in dark clothes like amateurs playing spies. I carried nothing but a flashlight and June's crayon map. The back gate yawned open. Inside, the air was hot, metallic, alive. Rows of humming racks lined the basement, servers blinking like constellations. The floor trembled beneath us. Lena filmed everything. "Do you realize what this is?" she whispered. "They're running military-grade data farms on community utilities. That's why the power vanishes. They're bleeding residents to feed machines." I pointed to the control panel. The usage logs matched my spreadsheets exactly. Megawatts devoured without a single line item reported. That was the proof. We had it. And then, footsteps. Heavy. Close. A flashlight beam cut through the dark. 2 men in security jackets descended the stairs. One of them barked, "Who's there?" Lena's camera light flicked off. My chest thundered. For a moment, the only sound was the machines, the steady, monstrous breathing of hidden truth. I stepped forward. "It's just me, the boy who cried audit." The guards froze, recognition flashing like static. One raised his radio, but Lena was faster. She whispered, "Run!" We bolted through the maze of servers, my flashlight bouncing wild. The basement roared behind us. Shouts, metal doors slamming, boots chasing. Outside, we didn't stop until we reached her car. She threw the camera bag in the back seat, slammed the wheel, and peeled away. In the rearview mirror, the Holloway Center glowed like a lighthouse of lies, daring us to challenge it. Back at my darkened house, Lena backed up the footage to 3 drives and handed me one. Her hands shook. "They'll come for this," she said. "Let them," I replied. "If they shut off my light, I'll just burn brighter." And in that moment, for the first time since this began, I felt it. Not fear, not shame, resistance. By Sunday, the footage was out. Lena uploaded a trimmed version first. Servers whirring, meters spinning, the Holloway basement glowing with stolen light. The title was simple: "Where Your Power Bill Really Goes." It spread like spilled gasoline. At first, only whispers, comments under burner accounts, late-night shares. By Monday morning, it was everywhere. Half the town called us heroes. The other half called us liars. At the diner, 2 old men argued loud enough for everyone to hear. "They're traitors, stirring up hate against the council." "They're patriots," the other snapped. "You want to pay double for their secrets?" Every booth, every table, every corner buzzed with the same fight. Suddenly, people couldn't pretend they didn't see. The town had to choose. But power has long arms. By Tuesday, City Hall released a statement calling our video misleading and doctored. Claire's name was on the bottom of the letter, neat as ever. And then came the smear. Flyers appeared on telephone poles with my photo, the word unstable stamped across my forehead. Parents whispered that June was dangerous to sit beside. When I walked her to school, other kids stepped aside like we carried plague. "Daddy," she whispered, "did I do something wrong?" I knelt, my throat tight. "No, love. Sometimes telling the truth makes people afraid, and when they're afraid, they forget to be kind. That night, Lena's car was keyed nose to trunk. My mailbox was stuffed with dead light bulbs. Someone left a note under my doormat. One more word, and the dark becomes permanent. But silence wasn't an option anymore. Not after the footage. Not after the whispers had become roars. So we went bigger. We sent the full logs, the blueprints, the complete footage to national outlets. We didn't ask permission. We didn't wait. Wednesday morning, the story made headlines beyond our county line. Small-town utility scam funds, secret servers. The world was watching now, and nothing terrifies corruption more than a spotlight it can't switch off. The Holloway Center still glowed across the street, bright as judgment. But for the first time, I didn't see it as a weapon. I saw it as evidence. Their light was the very thing that would expose them. And deep down, I knew they wouldn't go quietly. By Thursday, the town was boiling. On Main Street, neighbors who once baked pies for each other now screamed across sidewalks. Some carried signs, "Turn the power back to the people," while others shouted, "Protect our council." For the first time in years, the church bells couldn't drown out the noise. That evening, I returned home to find our front window shattered. Glass crunched beneath my boots. June's stuffed rabbit lay on the floor, its white fur glittering with shards. She picked it up, eyes wide. "Daddy, why do they hate us?" I didn't answer. Because the truth was unbearable. They hated me for refusing to shut up. And they hated her for being mine. Lena arrived minutes later, her camera still rolling. "This is it," she said. "They're cornered. When corruption bleeds, it always thrashes." She was right. At 9 p.m., the lights across town flickered, one by one, then died. For 30 seconds, silence smothered everything. And then, like a cruel joke, every building relit, except ours. We stood in darkness again, but this time, so did half the town. A miscalculation, a glitch, or maybe finally proof too heavy to hide. Within an hour, crowds gathered outside the Holloway Center. Some demanded answers, others defended it with fists and fury. Police lines buckled. Rocks flew. The center's glowing sign shattered. Sparks raining like stars. From my porch, I watched history break itself open. For years, they had hidden their theft under our noses. Tonight, they couldn't hide the evidence. The servers still hummed. But now the whole town saw the glow behind the broken glass. At midnight, the mayor went live on local television, his voice trembling. Operations at the Holloway Center are suspended pending investigation. Pending investigation. A phrase that means we've lost control but won't admit it yet. Lena gripped my shoulder. "You did it. You dragged their lie into daylight." I shook my head. We did it. But daylight's not safe yet. Because even in the glow of exposed truth, shadows waited. And I knew they hadn't finished with me. Friday came with sirens. The state investigators arrived in black SUVs, not to protect me, but to protect evidence. Cameras swarmed the Holloway Center, now taped off in yellow, its doors chained like a captured beast. The council stayed silent. Claire resigned. HR vanished. But silence was no longer a shield. It was an admission. That night, as I tucked June into bed, I heard tires crunch outside. Headlights cut across our living room wall. My chest tightened. I stepped onto the porch. A single figure leaned against a black truck, the same one I'd seen before. "You should have taken the severance," he said softly, almost kindly. "Families that fight the current don't last long." I didn't flinch. "Families that stay silent don't last either." He smirked, then tossed something at my feet. A single fuse, copper, glinting in the porch light. A threat and a promise. Then he drove away, swallowed by the night. The next morning, I found June at the kitchen table drawing again. This time no red scribbles of bad places, just a picture of our house, bright, lit, alive. "Is this what we'll look like now?" she asked. I smiled, though my hands trembled. "Yes, because the truth doesn't burn out, not even when they try to cut the wires." By week's end, national networks aired our story. Federal auditors confirmed the fraud. Millions diverted, contracts forged, a town betrayed. The Holloway servers were dismantled, power bills dropped, and for the first time in months, our lights flicked back on. Neighbors avoided me still, some out of shame, some out of loyalty to the lie, but others stopped to shake my hand. Quiet thanks, whispered apologies. The town had split, but the crack had let the light through. That night, June switched on her nightlight. She smiled as it glowed. "The stars gave it back," she whispered. "No," I said, pulling the blanket to her chin. "We took it back." Truth is fragile, like glass, but when it shatters, it cuts chains as well as hands. You may lose friends, comfort, even safety, but silence feeds corruption. Only voices, loud, stubborn, unbroken, can keep the lights on, for everyone. If this story moved you, subscribe now, because every voice, every share, every click is another light against the dark.